The glass doors of Caldwell Motors, a luxury car dealership, slid open as a disheveled black man stepped inside. His clothes were torn, shoes covered in dust, and his face carried the exhaustion of the streets. The white receptionist, Tiffany, froze mid-sentence, then whispered to her co-worker, "Is he lost?" Within seconds, two salesmen surrounded him, their polite smiles fading into disgust. "Sir, this isn't a shelter. We sell cars here," one sneered. But the man didn't respond. His gaze traveled across the showroom, over the gleaming Ferraris and Mercedes, until it stopped on a single-framed photo behind the counter. A faint, knowing smile crossed his face. If only they knew who really signed their paychecks. Darnell Hayes had once been the golden name behind Caldwell Motors. Years earlier, he'd built the dealership from scratch with his late father. Before selling the majority shares to travel abroad and start a new company, he left management to his trusted partner, Greg Caldwell, who was white, charming, and business-savvy, or so Darnell thought. But when Darnell's new startup collapsed overseas, he returned home quietly. His name had been scrubbed off the dealership's walls, his contributions forgotten. Even worse, Greg had quietly rewritten history, taking full credit as the founder. With no money and no home, Darnell had spent months on the streets, too proud to beg, too broken to fight. But this morning was different. He wasn't there to ask for charity. He was there to see how people treated those they thought were beneath them. From behind the counter, Tiffany's forced smile faltered as Darnell approached. "Sir, you can't stand here," she said sharply. "Please wait outside." He nodded quietly, glancing toward a red Ferrari on display, the same model he'd once helped design a custom edition for. The senior salesman, Ethan, leaned in, smirking. "You looking to buy, sir?" Darnell looked up, his eyes steady. "Maybe." Ethan laughed. "You? Sure. The price starts at $280,000. Got that in your pocket?" A few customers nearby chuckled under their breath. Darnell didn't react. Instead, he reached for a keychain hidden beneath his worn jacket. On it was a faded metal tag engraved with the letters DH01, the original staff ID, number from Caldwell's founding day. He brushed the dust off gently and slipped it back into his pocket. They had no idea what storm was about to hit them. When Greg Caldwell, the dealership manager, arrived an hour later, he found his employees gathered near the entrance. "What's going on here?" he asked. Ethan stepped forward. "Some homeless guy's been wandering around the lot, touching the cars. Says he wants to buy one." Greg smirked. "Then maybe he should start with a shower." Everyone laughed. But as Greg turned toward Darnell, something about the man's eyes made him pause. There was familiarity, something unsettling in that quiet, unflinching stare. Still, Greg shrugged it off. "Sir, this is private property. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Darnell nodded slowly. "I understand. But before I do, could I take a look at that photo on your wall?" Greg frowned. "What photo?" "That one," Darnell pointed to a framed image of two young men standing beside the dealership's first car, holding a ribbon-cutting scissors. Greg's jaw tightened. "That was our founder's first sale," he said quickly. "Our founder," Darnell repeated softly, almost to himself. Greg's tone hardened. "Sir, please leave before I call security." But Darnell's calm expression never broke. "You might want to call your lawyers instead," he said. The words sliced through the air like glass. The laughter died instantly. "Excuse me?" Greg barked. Darnell slowly reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a folded document, worn, creased but unmistakable. The original shareholder agreement bearing two signatures, Darnell Hayes and Gregory Caldwell. For the first time, Greg's color drained. This can't be," he stammered. "It can," Darnell said quietly. "And it is?" Tiffany stepped back, her voice barely above a whisper. "You mean, you're—" "Yes," Darnell nodded. "I'm the co-founder of Caldwell Motors." The room went still. Customers glanced around, realizing the homeless man wasn't who he seemed. But Darnell didn't raise his voice. He simply walked toward the Ferrari and ran his fingers along its hood. "I helped design this model, and I built this place brick by brick. but I see now what it's become. A place that laughs at people who look poor, who look different. Greg's face turned red. You left. You abandoned it. No, Darnell replied evenly. I trusted you. The silence that followed was thick with shame. Tiffany began to cry softly. Ethan, who had mocked Darnell moments earlier, looked down, speechless. Greg straightened his tie and forced a laugh. All right, you've made your point. What do you want? Money? A title? Darnell turned toward him slowly. No, I want every person here to understand that success doesn't come with a color or a suit. It comes with respect. Then, pulling out his phone, he made a quick call. Within minutes, 2 black cars pulled up outside. From them stepped 3 corporate lawyers and 2 security guards, all dressed sharply, carrying official documents. Greg's smirk vanished. The head lawyer handed Greg an envelope. Mr. Hayes is here to reclaim full management rights of Caldwell Motors. Your ownership privileges are hereby suspended pending investigation. The staff gasped. Darnell stood quietly, watching Greg's face crumble. You had your chance, he said softly. You chose greed over gratitude. The entire dealership froze as Greg dropped into a chair, stunned. He looked around, realizing that everyone, employees, customers, even his assistant, was now standing behind Darnell. Wait, this isn't fair, Greg stammered. You can't just walk in here and… Darnell raised a hand. Fair? You think mocking a man for how he looks is fair? Greg had no answer. The head lawyer opened a folder and began reading aloud the findings of an internal audit. How? Greg had been overcharging. Clients and laundering company, funds under false accounts. Every word cut deeper than the last. Tiffany covered her mouth in shock. Ethan turned pale. Darnell didn't look proud. He looked heartbroken. This was my father's dream, he said softly. A place where every person, black, white, rich, or poor, could walk in and be treated with dignity. But you turned it into a circus. Greg's eyes filled with tears. Please, Darnell. Don't take it all. Darnell paused, then looked at him for a long moment. No, he said. I'm not taking it all. I'm just taking it back. With that, he turned toward the staff. Every one of you deserves a second chance to learn something today. You'll stay if you treat people better than you treated me. As he walked out, the crowd parted in silence. Outside, the afternoon light hit his face as if the world itself was exhaling. For the first time in years, Darnell smiled. Not because he'd won, but because he'd reminded them what real power looked like. A week later, Caldwell Motors reopened under a new name, Hayes Automotive. The walls that once held. Greg's portraits now displayed photos of diverse employees, smiling beside customers from every background. Tiffany stayed on but spent her first month volunteering at a local shelter, serving people who once reminded her of Darnell. Ethan personally apologized, telling Darnell he'd never forget that day. As for Greg, he quietly left town. Darnell didn't press charges. He didn't need revenge. He had something greater, peace. Standing in the showroom, dressed sharply in a navy suit, Darnell looked out the window where a homeless man stood hesitating at the door. Darnell walked over, opened it wide, and said with a kind smile, "Come in. You're welcome here." The man's face softened with disbelief and he stepped inside. For Darnell, that moment mattered more than any car or title. He'd learned that power isn't about money. It's about mercy. And that day, everyone in that dealership learned the same lesson. Never judge a person by their appearance, because one day, you might find yourself standing before the very person you once looked down on. Respect is the true measure of wealth. Kindness costs nothing, but its value lasts forever.